contextualization. At this point, we are moving to our wrap-up for the day, and I know we're getting our final crew brought in here. So, Marc, welcome back to the stage. How are you feeling now that the event is coming to a close?
Oh, good. Actually, you know what? This is a lot of fun. Obviously, there's a lot of work that's gone into it, but the people met over the last couple of days have been awesome. Great speakers, great discussions. So, yeah, it's been a fun time. So, feeling good.
And I'm excited to have Drew Crowe joining us here
What
as
up?
well.
What
and
up?
Dave, welcome
Yes.
back to the stage. There's a lot of St. Louis represented here, both you
Let's
and
go.
I being from St. Louis, Missouri. So excellent to see you here at the end of the day. It's been fun following the event and seeing you kicking things off here. So
Yes. I'm definitely glad to pop back in and wrap things up with you fellas. And I'll tell you how I personally feel. I feel like we covered so much, but there's so much more to cover. It kind of is bittersweet that we're closing the door right now on this session. But the good thing and the silver lining is Marc and Dave are picking up the mantle with their podcast until the next one. So, there's a silver lining out over the horizon.
Yes, and we've already seen 2 of these do more with data summits happen over the past year, so I'm excited to see what comes next as well. These have been a blast on both occasions, and I know Litmus always has a lot of fun stuff up their sleeve. So excited to jump into the takeaways from our event, or really some of the takeaways here from day 2, and I'm excited to hear some perspectives from everyone on this. And coincidentally, Dave, you're right at the top of the list again with our first takeaway of the list. So we'll jump straight to you on this one. There is a mind shift happening on the OT side. I'd love to hear you expand on that as one of our major takeaways from day 2 of the event.
Yeah, it's just there's a new thinking, this paradigm shift about contextualizing data and solving some of the problems we just spoke about in the last group, that understanding the context of the data, that there's other technologies that are being used out there that we haven't used in our traditional, kind of SCADA historian, MES type systems, that those things are evolving, and that they're now, I think OT is now rethinking how they've been doing things and how they're exposing data to people. So it's an exciting time, I think. It's just because we're looking at that true Industry 4.0 revolution, where we're really starting to understand on how popular data, or how powerful data can be, and having it in the right context, and taking data and converting it to information to actually take action on. So there's some really cool things that are happening out there.
And Marc and Drew, if either of you have any thoughts around this one, we've got a good list to roll through here. Would love to hear any additional perspectives beyond what Dave just shared.
Yeah, I'll say.
Go ahead, Marc. Sorry, Drew, but yeah, I think Dave said it well.
Yeah, I'd say the mind shift, the rhetoric shift. To mention, quote what Dave just said, I mean, it's a true revolution that's going on, and you can feel it, right? You can feel that we are blazing new trails, blazing new paths, and we are rewriting the history in the future as we're doing this, and we're doing things like this. So it's amazing to see. One thing that has been something that was a carryover for both days for me, particularly, is when you think about data, when you think about digitization, you think about this whole transformation, you think about, or AI even, it doesn't really seem human-centered. But every panelist, every person, every major key point that we're making today has always tied back into the people, right? And, it's great to see the humanization of these things kind of come full circle. And now with that, the people are able to take this whole thing forward, and this revolution is amazing to be a part of.
And Marc, I know I saw you had some thoughts to share as well.
Yeah, I think what's most amazing about this is 4 years ago when I started here at Litmus, IoT was interesting. There's a lot of talk. There's a lot of seminars, a lot of presentations, but it wasn't real yet. But now I think it's here. It's manifested itself, and today's session was another testament to I think people know what it is, and I think they know what they want to do with it now. Like they're on the journey rather than just kicking tires.
And next up, we've got a nice quote from Charlie Sheridan, which I think people can pull a lot from right out of the gate, but I'm excited to hear from a couple people that were also part of this panel. There's no secret sauce to data strategy. I feel like that was an overarching theme across a lot of the conversations, particularly around, hey, if we're talking data, since there's potentially so much of it, we've got to have something that's tied to the business as well. And Drew, you were part of this conversation earlier. If you want to expand on this one or what you took away from this, and then we'll move to Dave since you were also in this one. I'd love to hear from both of you here.
Absolutely. And also to, kind of, again, tie in a little bit of everything, this panel, these panels, what Marc just said is proof in of itself that we're moving forward, right? And being able to have more use cases as we move forward to study things that we can talk about, like Mr. Sheridan said on the panel, hey, we learned by having so many different people that we have looking at the failures. We can teach you what we've seen on a mass scale and then bring you that on a smaller niche solution for you, but it has to lead somewhere, right? And, as Dave said, Dave and Mike were talking about, not knowing what you don't know, but you'll know nothing unless you put yourself into the game. So, having the opportunity to have more people in, having more people be transparent, having more opportunities for platforms like this, and like Marc said, more use cases are coming out of this, then we can continue to see, how to put these things into proper play.
Excellent. Dave, we'll go to you next, and then Marc, we'll have you wrap this one up.
Yeah, I get requests a lot of times of, hey, can you share with me the data model, or what's the best practice for all of this? And I think it's, we're still figuring that out, right? So that's the no secret sauce. It's really just trying things out, experimenting with it, coming up with a solution, but always keep in mind that it's going to change. And I tell people that, if they said, we're going to come up with a data model, great. Guess what? You're going to be wrong the first time, but don't get down on yourself. Everybody gets it wrong, right? It's going to evolve. Make sure you're choosing something that allows you to make that change easily, right? Because you're going to learn from that. You're going to learn from your mistakes. So that's
and
what
having the transparency to, first of all, accepting the fact that this is so new that we will do those things, but then having the transparency to talk about our failures, right. I think is also a huge piece of this, right? And a huge part of us going forward, because again, in those failures, we see, okay, maybe in my sauce, this didn't work, but a pinch of garlic might work in yours instead of, a clove, right? And so we help each other get better, which continues to, like I said, be the catalyst of us going through, what we call 4.0 and being on the cusp of 5 and 6 and whatever is ahead of us.
I love the analogies we've heard throughout today.
The soft
Marc,
analogy.
That's a good one. Marc, when you hear there's no secret sauce to data strategy, what does that mean to you? What's been your big takeaway?
Well, I think Charlie was spot on about aligning whatever you're doing to the business challenges. So you have to know why you're doing it. I've seen proof of concepts that are just kind of a science experiment, and then does it work? Yeah, but no one cares because it's not actually adding value to whatever you're doing on the shop floor. Manufacturers have tight budgets, so everything you do, every moment you spend needs to reflect some way on a challenge that you're trying to overcome. So really aligning whatever you're doing to a business challenge, one, solve something, but two, it's going to get better executive sponsorship, which is what you need to move forward, because that's where the budget comes from. So he was spot on.
Excellent addition about the executive sponsorship there. We're on to our third big takeaway from day 2 of the event, and it's all about collaboration at the end of the day. Manbeer shared this one in, I believe, our second to last session. And there's always a benefit when OT and IT work together. And I'll start off with just a really quick story on this one. Even before we were talking about data and digital transformation and IoT, Industry 4.0, all the buzzwords, I'd learned a powerful lesson from an executive that had shared what they went through, well over a decade ago when they went through their MES transformation across their enterprise. And he shared one of the first things they did was get a team of 6 IT people and 6 OT people in the same room as part of the team that would help drive that change forward. And that's always stuck in my mind as, that was a best practice early on. I hope we keep that one going. So, Marc, you've been batting cleanup here for a while, so I'll have you lead off. What are some of your thoughts around it being all about collaboration?
Well, I think it's spot on as well. I think that was the session I hosted, and it was the stories there. I think Sheila was talking about how her husband went to all the different plants, and that was the optimum of collaboration. An IT person taking the time, wanting to understand, and that's the first step, right? And I think a lot of the barriers sometimes between IT and OT are because each has their own agenda and they think they're different, but at the end of the day, they all exist to run the business and to make product and to sell the product and make profit, right? And if they can understand that and walk a mile in each other's shoes, and to your example, Chris, like putting the people in the same room for a project of that type is a really good best practice. And it's something that we try to do at Litmus as well, is identify all the people at the start of the project that are going to be needed to do all the different pieces, and then have them align across the technical and the use cases and just in general what the goal is. So it's a powerful best practice.
Drew, anything you want to add on this? And then Dave, we'll wrap up this one with you.
Well, just again, the general excitement I'm seeing in my head going into these shops and these factories, and there's these like specialized Navy SEAL teams of half IT, half OT, and tech and operations are hybridized like we talked about, or even having, these utility players, these new positions that arise out of this that have, a foundation in both, right? How cool would that be to have, a new train of thought? And that's basically what we're saying is we've been predicting would happen, that the introduction of all of these buzzwords and the integration of all of these buzzwords would change the way that we work and would change, the very way that we make things, right? And so, again, this is an exciting time because this is the result of these conversations. Now, as a result of, these use cases and these experts being brought together, the people that are seeing this have a shortcut to that, right? So, okay, this is maybe where I need to pivot and put my attention at when I'm looking to scale, when I'm looking to, increase productivity and my bottom dollar. This is where I need to start by putting these teams together or helping to create a pathway where I can make a leader that has a foundation in both and can navigate these waters for us.
And last but not least, Dave, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about collaboration pretty much in every session at some point because it's critical to it. I mean, I've been doing this for a while at Litmus now, and whenever I get into a customer that has just OT or just IT that are discussing, proof of concepts and stuff, I know it's going to fail unless they bring in someone else. It's not going to work, because if you just deal with IT or just to deal with OT, they're going to come up with a use case, work for it. I mean, this has happened. A company working with on the OT side spent a year developing all these use cases. As soon as they said, okay, we're ready to launch it, went to IT. IT said no, shut them down. They haven't moved in, off of that. So it happens, right? you need to have everybody together for this to be successful. And then, just bridging the idea and collaboration, it reminds me of a book that I got back in the 90s when ERP was just starting to come out. I remember creating that book because I wanted to learn more about ERP coming from an OT side. And out of that book, they talked about ERP, they talked about inventory, human resources, sales, all of that stuff in there. 2 pages dedicated to manufacturing on that whole book. And it's like, that's the paradigm shift that I'm seeing, is that, OT has a lot of valuable data in it. We need to start getting that out. We've been doing it with all these other systems. We haven't done it with manufacturing, and that's where we are right now. But that collaboration has to happen.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think our fourth takeaway aligns with this as well. You mentioned collaboration has been a theme that's come up all day. Another reoccurring theme throughout the day has been alignment and hybridization between IT and OT. And Mark, I'd like to start with you again here, because I think this is one that touches on what we were just talking about, but it also gets into how do we make sure that IT and OT see that they are on the same team rather than having some of these, let's say, conflicts in the scenario that David just described.
Yeah, I think part of this one is again, I'll touch on what Michael said, like having a partner that has been through it and understands the best practices. You heard a lot of those in the session I hosted. Again, a lot of it was driving the collaboration and not forgetting to talk to the right people, and kind of set that as a leadership style, as a partner with these manufacturing companies, to say, look, this is how we've done it in the past. This is how it works. And this is how to bring those people together. And it's, again, the collaboration, and setting up that shared goal, right? So again, Sheila said it well. Having the shared goal means that you want the same things. If you're disagreeing, that means somebody is missing some data, or they have a different point of view, but your alignment comes with the shared goal.
Excellent. And Dave, I wouldn't mind getting your thoughts on this one, and then we'll open it up to number 5, where I'd love to hear us all share maybe one of our final takeaways from this event.
Yeah, I think getting to getting the right company, depending on what you want to do, but sometimes it's actually multiple companies. I think somebody referred to it either yesterday or today that there's not one system to do all, right? There isn't. You're going to need something to extract the data. You're going to need something to transform it. You're going to need another, it needs to land somewhere, right? There's no one-stop shop really for everything. So I think it's bringing in and collaborating with these vendors and shaking off the mindset of like they're just trying to sell me something. It's, this is coming from experience, and that we're trying to make our customers successful, right? And making sure, as long as they can, we have to build trust that they were trying to do things in their best interest. So that's just what I would say about the collaboration part.
Yeah, I think ecosystem is another word that I've been hearing thrown around, not very intentionally and meaningfully in this conversation, but just in the industry in general as well. So I'm glad you brought up that point, Dave. I think this is that's been a big part of this overall industry transformation we're in right now. So
right.
As we get to the end of our conversation here, we have an open-ended number 5. What else did we learn from today? I have one to share, but I'm going to wait on that for a second. Drew, I'll have you start us off on this one. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, and it actually came from that last session that just wrapped. Like I said, throughout the whole day, we've talked about, obviously, collaboration. We've talked about, empowering the people. Like I said earlier, the theme for me for the past 2 days was, the power of the people to not only show you what data is important, but to be enabled with that data to, give you your return on investment that you're looking for. But to wrap it all up, Jim said process data shows people data. And I think that is the perfect big picture for all of these things. Work them together. collect the data on the processes while you're collecting the people data. Let both of these things give you a big picture of what's going on in your plant on both levels, and that'll give you the best strategy to begin to lay out your efforts and your plans and put that team together that we talked about.
I like that, Drew. I actually pulled something from Jim in the last session as well, and it was a comment in reference to a comment I made to Sheila's answer. And Jim had said, when companies say data is an asset, a lot of times that's lip service right now. And I think that was a really important point in our last session, because we want to make sure none of this ends up being lip service, but that we're learning from mistakes of the past. We're learning from the best practices that we've discussed here. And it really got my thinking going around as I see companies acquiring other companies all over the place in the manufacturing world right now. Sheila made a great point about what to do when it comes to contextualizing data, and that's you've got to invest in the foundation, specifically the data hierarchy. So that way, you're clear about what needs to change when there's an acquisition. I think this is a big part of actually not just using data as an asset as lip service, but when you're intentional about how you look at your payback on an acquisition, you need to have that contextualization there. You need to know what you're measuring. I thought that was really powerful from Sheila, and I like the way Jim kind of drove it home even more, saying, hey, if we're going to do this, you have to be serious about treating data as an asset. So that was one of my big takeaways from the last session. I'll hand it over to Team Litmus as we wrap this up. So, Mark, how about you go first, and Dave, you can close us out.
Sure.
All right. Well, I think the biggest takeaway I got from these 2 days, one is we had an amazing group of people from you, Chris, and from you, Drew. But the cross section that we got, we had software suppliers, we had consultants, we had OT people, we had IT people, right? And the theme was common, right? It was very consensual, where every session there wasn't any contention across those sessions. It was very agreeable, because I think all the different parties see the same path. They all see the value of data. They all see the same value for getting people to work together. And I think that's a monumental shift when IT and OT and consultants and software companies are really seem like they're all pulling in the same direction these days. Whereas in the past, there was different agendas and there was more headbutting. So I think just the paradigm is shifting to be it's a holistic team versus as Dave said, we're not necessarily trying to sell you something. We're here to help you learn from our experiences and try to give you the best way forward. So that was really what I saw over the last couple of days, and that makes me excited.
And Dave, to wrap it all up.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, my takeaway is more personal to me, from the standpoint of, we'll talk about data contextualization and collaboration and getting the right teams together and the right people. And we talk about that within the company, but it can sometimes be an echo chamber. So it was really great for me to hear from other people saying, yes, get the right team together. Yes, adding, contextualizing data. Yes, have a plan. Just kind of maybe like we're on the right path. So I felt good about that, to say, what we're seeing out there, we're not alone in that space, that everybody's seeing the same challenges. So that's my takeaway from it.
Well, I'm always impressed with these do more with data summits. To kind of summarize everything we've been saying here, it blows me away how informative these 4 hours each day are, and how at the same time digestible the information is. We're getting in depth. We're not talking high level, but we're still walking away with understandable takeaways that we can leave and bring back to our operations and the people that we're serving in industry. So always a pleasure to be a part of these Do More with Data Summits. And I want to thank everyone that came to this event, that's still online listening to us here at the end of the day. Thank you for being a part of this. Take the information you've gotten and bring it back to your operations. There's a lot to be learned and executed on from these events. So thank you everyone for being a part of this.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Drew.
Thanks, Chris.
Great
Thanks,
job.
Drew. Thanks,
Hey,
Dave.
See you later.
You too, Mark. All right. Bye, everyone.
See you.
For me, Litmus is kind of at the sweet spot between small and having a lot of influence on things, being able to really directly see the results of what you're doing. I think that's what most of us are longing for, to work. You work hard and you want to see a direct result.
So I have questions or I need training. They just take 1 hour of their day and spend it with me. Really amazing. And I see that with all the people. Like, I need help, I call them, they take their time. Not 15 minutes, not 10, 1 hour. For me as a newbie, I need this time. And I feel like after 2 months, I have seen a lot already, and I got this all because of good onboarding.
A lot of smart people, and everybody's very humble. Should I say like no assholes in this company? Yes. Yeah?
So when I joined Litmus, they actually made me take a test on the product, and I immediately fell in love with that because I came from a SCADA historian, PLC background, and the way they were doing things just made it so easy. It's something that I tell people, where I was doing in hours with a brand new product that would take me a week in a product that I knew quite well. So I fell in love with the product and joined the company. Then I fell in love with the people and just love the culture. There's the don't let anything stop you kind of attitude.
I think the secret sauce that our team has is they're not afraid to learn, and they're not afraid to say, that's super interesting, and they're not afraid to go on the journey with the customer. They'll give you the process around it too, and they'll give you the empathy about like, yeah, this is hard, but we're with you. So again, it's walking a mile in their shoes. Their challenge is our challenge. And our team, we hire specifically, the people we have are those type of people. They enjoy a problem. They like to figure it out, and they like to help the person who has the problem. So they're not in it for themselves, they're actually in it for the customer.